on the Afghanistan Fish Court. On Wednesday, July 30th. Welcome. The Afghanistan Journalists Center has warned about the arrest of 7 journalists and media activists by the Taliban. This center has called on the Taliban government to respect the freedom of journalists and to release the detainees unconditionally. Pay attention to our exclusive report on this matter.
These are some of the restrictions imposed on journalists and the media. According to the Afghanistan Journalists Center, the Taliban government in Afghanistan has recently, over the past 3 weeks, detained at least 7 journalists and media activists in Kabul and other provinces, either by Taliban intelligence or by officials from the Ministry for the Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice. In a statement released on Monday, July 28th, the Afghanistan Journalists Center expressed concern over the recent wave of journalist arrests and called on the Taliban government to respect the fundamental rights and freedoms of journalists and media activists, and to release the detained journalists unconditionally. However, due to security concerns, the statement did not disclose the identities of these 7 individuals. However, it states that on July 22nd and 23rd, a journalist and 2 media activists, organizers of an educational workshop for girls, and another journalist were arrested on charges of providing technical assistance to foreign media and were transferred to the Taliban Intelligence Directorate. The Afghanistan Journalists Center has stated that earlier, on July 14th, intelligence officers and officials from the Taliban government's Ministry for the Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice raided a media center called Pixel, arrested the company's director along with his deputy, and confiscated their office equipment. Previously, a social media outlet called Dementia, which is said to be close to the Taliban's Ministry for the Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice. On July 26th, it published a video on its Instagram page showing the confession of the officials from Pixel Company, stating that these 2 individuals were arrested on charges of promoting Western culture and collaborating with biased media through translating and dubbing TV series. However, the Afghanistan Journalists Center has called these confessions coerced and described the arrest as an act contrary to international principles. The Afghanistan Journalists Center also stated that on May 6th, in one of the provinces, without specifying which, a local journalist was arrested by Taliban intelligence, but was released on bail after 2 days, with a commitment taken from him to strictly observe the harsh conditions set by the authorities. The center has said that these arrests are a serious threat to the safety of journalists and freedom of expression, and that currently at least 15 journalists and media workers are being held in Taliban detention centers. A number of Afghan journalists say that since the Taliban returned to power in Afghanistan, journalism has become a dangerous profession, facing threats of imprisonment and torture. A journalist in Kabul, who did not want to be named in the report due to the sensitivity of the issue and spoke on the condition that their voice be altered, said,
"As a journalist, I am extremely worried, because anyone who does not describe things the way they do, according to their narrative, must be arrested, tortured, and threatened. I think working in Afghanistan under these circumstances is extremely difficult. If this situation continues like this, media work and freedom of expression in Afghanistan, which have never been in a good state, will face a serious threat of being wiped out."
Another journalist in Logar province, who works with a local media outlet and does not want his name mentioned in the report and spoke on the condition that his voice be altered, said,
"The whole aim is to silence the voice of the people through the media and, in a gradual way, to stop even this already weak media activity that is coming out of Afghanistan. We journalists have still managed to keep our media activities and our mission going, even under extremely difficult conditions."
Meanwhile, the Federation of Journalists has condemned the arrest of these journalists and has called for their immediate release. In a statement on Tuesday, July 29th, this federation called on public media organizations to work for the release of the journalists and to put pressure on the Taliban to ensure the safety of journalists. It is worth noting that since the Taliban regained power in Afghanistan, pressures and restrictions on the media and journalists in the country have increased, causing some media outlets to cease their activities and forcing many media professionals to leave the country. Although the Taliban government has repeatedly stated that it is committed to freedom of expression and the media in accordance with Islamic values and within the framework of national interests. However, Rosa Otunbayeva, the UN Secretary-General's Special Representative for Afghanistan and head of UNAMA, said in a statement on the occasion of May 3rd, World Press Freedom Day, that the Taliban's restrictions on freedom of expression in the country are concerning and have exposed media workers and journalists to threats, arrests, and mistreatment.
Afghan families are complaining about difficulties in accessing polio vaccination for their children. They say that due to Taliban restrictions on female vaccinations, the distance to health centers, and the lack of transportation facilities, many children are deprived of receiving the vaccine. We'll examine the details of this challenge and the proposed solution in this report.
Kids in our villages often miss out on vaccines because there's no door-to-door vaccination.
Abdul Masood, a resident of a remote area in Parwan province, says their children have been deprived of the polio vaccine because medical centers are too far from their area. He said last Tuesday that during the recent round of polio vaccinations, he wasn't at home and there was no one to take his young child to the medical center to get vaccinated.
I couldn't take my own child to the clinic to get vaccinated because I wasn't home, and our neighbor couldn't take him to the clinic either. This was the problem we faced. It would be much better if the vaccination was done door-to-door, so that all children could be vaccinated. That way, no one would miss out on the vaccine. A lot of children in our area miss out on vaccines because it's not done door-to-door, and there's no one to take them to the clinic for vaccination. Many children are left unvaccinated.
Similarly, a resident of Kast province, whose name is mentioned in the report, has faced a similar problem and emphasizes that the polio vaccine should be administered door-to-door. He spoke about this issue.
It's very difficult for us that the vaccinators don't go door to door, especially when there is no man at home. This makes it very hard for us. Once, for this very reason, one of our children missed the vaccine and we were very worried. We hope that vaccinators will be allowed to come door to door.
Some vaccinators also believe that administering the polio vaccine to children door-to-door is effective. One of them, who did not want their name mentioned in the report due to the sensitivity of the issue, said,
"The door-to-door campaigns were much better because we could go to every house and communicate directly with the parents of the children. And this was much better than having to stay in one house and asking other families to bring their children to another house. Sometimes this problem comes up. Families can't bring their child outside, or the man of the house can't bring the child out, or his hands are busy, so he can't take the child from here to the neighbor's house. But if we go door to door, it will be much better because we can vaccinate each child right at their own doorstep."
The Ministry of Health and the Taliban government recently launched a 4-day supplementary polio vaccination campaign on Monday, the 30th, across 99 provinces of Afghanistan. Sharafat Zaman, the spokesperson for monitoring, said on his X page that in this campaign, about 7.43 million children under the age of 5 will be vaccinated in 167 districts throughout the year. Last year, the Taliban government stopped implementing the house-to-house polio vaccination method and instead changed the approach to mosque and village to village. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization, WHO, has warned that not carrying out the house-to-house polio vaccination campaign in Afghanistan puts children, especially newborns, at serious risk of being deprived of the polio vaccine. In a statement published on the WHO website on Monday, July 28, the organization's Emergency Committee on Polio was quoted as saying that implementing the polio vaccination campaign using the site-to-site method in Afghanistan could pave the way for the re-emergence of the wild polio virus. The statement goes on to say that these concerns and their possible consequences were discussed at the committee's 42nd meeting. The statement added that the return of undocumented migrants from Pakistan to Afghanistan and the seasonal movement of people increased the risk of cross-border transmission of the virus. Previously, the World Health Organization's Emergency Committee, after its 41st meeting on the polio virus, had stated that in 2024, the number of positive cases of wild polio virus in Afghanistan had increased 4-fold and in Pakistan 12-fold. According to information from the World Health Organization, in 2025, 2 positive cases of polio have been recorded in Afghanistan, one in the Bala Murghab district of Bajis province and the other in Helmand province. Afghanistan and Pakistan are the only countries in the world where the polio virus has not yet been completely eradicated. Doctors say that polio is a dangerous viral disease that has no cure, and only vaccination can save children from this disease.
The United States has increased the reward for the capture of the leader of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula from $6 million to $10 million. This decision was made as part of the Rewards for Justice program, and its goal is to obtain precise information about the whereabouts of this Al-Qaeda leader. More details in this report.
The United States has increased the reward for information on Saad bin Atef al-Awlaki, the leader of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, from $6 million to $10 million. The U.S. State Department announced in a statement on Tuesday, July 29th, that this increase is part of the Rewards for Justice program and aims to obtain credible information regarding the identification and whereabouts of Saad al-Awlaki. The statement, released by the spokesperson's office of the U.S. State Department, says that Saad bin Atef al-Awlaki was appointed as the leader of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula in 2024, and since then has been responsible for planning and leading the group's attacks against the United States and its allies. He has also been involved in cases of kidnapping American citizens in Yemen. The statement adds that al-Awlaki has repeatedly and publicly called for attacks against the United States and its allies, and as the leader of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, he is considered a serious threat to regional and global security. It further states that the U.S. State Department's Rewards for Justice program has also offered rewards of up to $5 million for information leading to the identification or location of Ibrahim al-Bana, and up to $4 million for information about Ibrahim Ahmed Mahmoud al-Kosai, both members of the group's leadership. The U.S. State Department has asked anyone with information in this regard to contact the agency, emphasizing that the identity of informants will be kept completely confidential. It is worth mentioning that previously, Ayman al-Zawahiri, the leader of Al-Qaeda, was killed on July 31, 2022, in a U.S. drone strike in the Sherpur area of Kabul. Before that, Osama bin Laden, the leader and founder of this group, was killed on May 2, 2011, during an operation by American forces in Abbottabad, Pakistan. Although the U.S. National Intelligence Agency, in its annual report published in 2025, removed Afghanistan from its list of national security threats. However, 2 months before that, in Dalwa 1403, February 2025, the United Nations Security Council stated in a report that the Taliban had allowed Al-Qaeda to establish bases, safe havens, and training camps in Afghanistan. The report states that lower-ranking Al-Qaeda members and their families are living in the Khalifatullah, Sharina, and Wazir Akbar Khan areas of Kabul under the supervision of Taliban intelligence. And senior Al-Qaeda leaders have been relocated to rural areas, including in the provinces of Saripol, Kunar, Ghazni, Logar, and Maidan Wardak. The Taliban government has always denied this claim, saying that it does not allow any terrorist group to operate on Afghan soil. It is worth mentioning that the U.S. State Department had previously offered a $10 million reward for information leading to the capture of Sirajuddin Haqqani, the acting Minister of Interior for the Taliban, who had been identified by the U.S. as being linked to the Haqqani network. However, this reward has recently been withdrawn. The reason given by the U.S. State Department for this action was that the department has the authority to review such lists in order to serve the interests of justice.
A new scientific study shows that living near green spaces can reduce the risk of diseases related to dementia. This research, published in the journal Scientific Reports, offers a natural solution for combating Alzheimer's and other brain diseases.
A new scientific study shows that living in green environments, or in other words, lush nature, can protect the human brain from dangerous damages that cause illnesses like memory loss or dementia. These diseases, which include Alzheimer's, are currently among the leading causes of death worldwide. A recent report published in a scientific journal called Scientific Reports states that environmental pollution, such as air pollution, can lead to memory impairment, reduced cognitive ability, and even the loss of human cognition. According to this study, currently around 55 million people worldwide suffer from dementia-related diseases. It is predicted that this number will reach nearly 140 million by the year 2050. Researchers believe that pollution causes oxidative stress in the brain. This means that it leads to the destruction of nerve cells, disruption of blood flow, and ultimately dementia. But the good news is that living near green spaces like gardens, parks, and even natural rural environments can lower the risk of developing these diseases. The reason is that green spaces both reduce stress and encourage people to be physically active, which is beneficial for the brain.
End of the news.